Michael Finocchiaro here with the Future of PLM webcast. I'm joined very happily with my friends Oleg, Rob, Jos, and of course Maria. Um, we all had a fantastic time at this wonderful conference, the Share PLM Conference in Jerez de la Frontera in Spain. So we wanted to start just by kind of the Wizard of Oz, pull back the curtain. What's it like? Question to Maria, like organizing a conference that didn't exist before, finding speakers. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, so when we first began thinking about the Share PLM Summit, I was actually in Madrid with Beatriz and Elena, and we were discussing, it was the end of last year, and we'd all just come back from various different events. And we were discussing the fact that whilst all of the events that we'd been to had been great, we noticed that there was a gap, that many of the typical events that we all attend, they're very, tool specific, system focused, and we focus more on the technology themselves and the features. And we noticed that, not many people were talking about kind of the human side of change. So what was it like actually implementing a new system? How were people brought on board? And obviously, this is something that we're very passionate about at Share PLM. It's what we support our customers with. So we thought, what better opportunity than to kind of try and bring our own event to life, which is kind of slightly different in the sense that it is system agnostic and human focused. And that's kind of the inspiration, or kind of where the initial kind of thought process came to organizing the event.
And what an event it was. How did you guys fall on the choice of Jerez? It wasn't exactly the
Mm.
most central place in Europe to hold it.
No, definitely not. So basically, I'm sure maybe some of our listeners today have already heard of the Nest. So essentially, this is a place that is currently finalizing its construction. But it's a place that, or a building, shall we say, that we are putting together in Jerez, in the south of Spain, to essentially have a physical place where we can bring customers and people together to actually take part in many of our design thinking workshops. And this came out of the fact that, as you all know, Share PLM is a predominantly remote company. We don't have a physical office. And this was great, especially during the years of COVID. However, after COVID, everyone had been locked in their houses for a very long time. And we noticed from many of our customers, they were kind of asking for and wanting to bring a lot of their kind of globalized teams together into one place. So we thought, well, what a better way to bring people together than bring them to Spain. They can enjoy the kind of the amazing qualities that Spain has to offer. Obviously, amazing sun, amazing weather, amazing food, but also a place where teams can come together and connect and be better aligned as they work through their transformation projects.
And you managed to get an incredible group of speakers, three of which are present.
Yes.
At the event, Rob did this amazing job as Rob William Shakespeare Ferrone with a murder mystery. Do you want to tell us how you came up with that idea, Rob?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like most of the way I approach work, I thought about it from the side of the perspective of the audience, and I thought, okay, what would they like from a conference? And it was Share PLM, so I wanted to do something different. And it had to be a human story as well. So I knew there'd be a lot of technology presentations, and I wanted to make sure I talked about the human side. Now, my background, I did maybe 20 years ago or longer. I did some acting myself, and also recently, my wife and I, we've been going to murder mystery dinners with neighbours, and so I had that in the back of my mind while I was thinking about the presentation. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do a murder mystery a presentation, because I can also then get not only audience participation, but even get people up on the stage with me. And yeah, that was the kind of roots of it. And I think I met up with some old friends at a Mexican, and we had some Mexican food and margaritas, and we thought about the different perspectives, engineering, purchasing, etc., and all of the day-to-day realities of their experience in the PLM and BOM and PDM world. And I think the let's say the suspect stories came together quite quickly, and then the actual challenge was limiting it to 20 minutes. I think I could have put on an hour long performance.
And for those that are listening, although there's a thread in my feed with all the presentations, including a video of Rob's thing. So, but for those that didn't see it, what can you just give us a 2 minutes resume of what it was like? Because I think
so there'd been a product lifecycle murder. So that means that the product had failed to materialize. It'd been killed before it made it into the public domain, and there were 5 suspects. So you had purchasing, you had engineering.
Next to you there, purchasing, I think.
Sorry.
On my screen, he's right next to you.
Okay. Exactly, and we had what was the I can't remember but anyway, it was project management. We had IT.
Yeah, you got to give them the real names because that was hilarious.
You might have to help me here. Maria will probably know them.
I'm trying to think of them.
Ken Chartman was program management.
That was it.
Architect was the IT architect. And the 5th one was
purchasing, right?
Yeah, we had purchasing. Yeah, there's. It'll come back to me. Anyway, they all had their stories. They obviously blamed each other for the failures to have the information they needed in order to bring the product to market. And the detective Bill O'Materials, which was played by me, the architect. Yeah, so he then questioned the suspects and came to the conclusion, and the audience was the jury, so they decided who they thought was guilty or not guilty, and then obviously I revealed the true cause of the murder, and then went on to explain my logic for that.
That was really, really cool. It was a lot of fun.
It was very entertaining. I think you had everybody nearly crying of laughter as you were presenting all of the speakers' names, especially when Oleg came out in his cap and his gold chains.
You look like a rapper from Brooklyn,
I'm getting invoices until now, so this is the.
I just put the link to that in no, actually that's one of the interviews with Rob. I'll look for the post. Well, Oleg, why don't you talk about so you gave a really good speech, of course, and you're a regular at these kinds of things. How how did you perceive the event? You're one of the people that traveled the furthest, right? You traveled all the way from Boston. So what is it about Maria's pitch that you said, yeah, I'm going to jump on an airplane, I'm going to go to the middle of nowhere, Spain, and I'm going to do this conference?
Well, you don't want to know about this.
Oh, actually, we do, but
don't reveal my sales secrets. So
that's the sales secrets of Maria and Helena. I think what it reminded to me, all the story about this event. It reminded me the event that now in the history, but I really like this event in the United States. It was called Congress for a Future of Engineering Software, COFES. So I don't know how many of you remember this event. But the story of this event was very interesting because 3 people were traveling from existing events, and they said that the most interesting part in that event was actually time that they spent on breaks. So during the breaks, they were able to talk.
Incredible, yeah.
Yeah, so they were spending time during breaks and conversation. And then they said, unfortunately, we need to go back to session and listen to all marketing pitches and presentations. So they said, let's create an event that will be focused more on conversations and more communication between people. So it was an amazing event. It's unfortunately dead before COVID, and I think there are some ideas how to recreate it again. But when Helena and later Maria were talking to me about humans, I said there is something that is desperately needed in this space, because I can get any presentation online and we can put all materials on YouTube, and like everything is available today. You can, again, now even more, you can ask ChatGPT. So you say, why would you go anywhere? Even Jos asked, why do we need to write blogs? Because kind of we need to rethink this as well. So I just found the idea of rethinking of how event should be deeply important, and I just said that I will go. But by the way, speaking of Boston, I've heard from some other people stories of traveling to this place of Spain, and I think my travel was pretty smooth, and some people were going. I mean, if I only will take your story, Michael, about going to the airports and sitting, I think my journey was much easier. So you see, so
Well,
that's
that was my own stupidity, a lot of that part. Jos, you gave a really great presentation that we really got to enjoy most of. But I know you're passionate about. I mean, that's one of your passions is humans and PLM, and you just told us how you were fighting the Dutch government about humans and government too. So I know
Yeah,
it's an important thing. You want to tell us a little bit about your talk?
yeah. Well, first of all, yeah, I think Share PLM is the modern version of me. I mean,
Oleg, James White on the chat saying he can't really hear you very well. So there might be a problem. I can hear you,
I
but I
don't
don't know why
know.
James can't.
okay.
And
I
there is
don't
one
know.
question in the chat about AI technologies, but since that was Rob's workshop, I'm going to let Jos open before handing that one to Rob. Okay.
Okay.
So don't worry, Volker, we're going to get to you.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I mean, I love working with Share PLM because we share the same vision that a lot of transformations need to happen through humans, and I consider them my younger version. So we are in a transition, and it will get better. And if you look at my presentation, I realized that I always tell those stories about moving from coordinated to connected and now AI enabled. And I thought, but what does it mean for humans? And then looking back, actually, we are going now through a real social transformation. The first one was the agricultural, when we started, I'd say, settle ourselves in small settlements. Then we had the industrial revolution, where we moved to cities and factories. And now we are in the age of digital transfer and knowledge transformation, where society is not longer relying on human knowledge. We also have external human sources, and they're going to work with us, and that will have an impact on the way we work and on ourselves. And my big advice, the human part on that, the technology is there, and we have to learn to use the technology, is that focus everyone now on your unique human capabilities. Learn and be ready to continuously learn. What you learn today might be obsolete in a few years. So be curious. Curiosity is crucial, and try to analyze what is happening. And I think the last thing is communicate with people. And that was exactly what we did in the conference. We need to have this communication skills between people to innovate. And that's also what companies will be looking for in the future. They don't want the nerd to sit behind somewhere a screen. They want the people that can combine this knowledge in communication. And in order to do so, and this is also what we discussed with some other companies later, you need to set time to learn now. It's not that you say end of the year, I'm going to a training. No, it's a continuous process. So for example, spend half a day per week on learning, on reading and digesting. And that was my main message. It's us, the people, that have to change our behavior.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's and I agree. It's we've gotten out of the habit of that self training because we just have Chat GPT and we could just ask the question. But it's really important that we keep our brain moving and thinking about it.
But ChatGPT will not innovate us.
No, it doesn't innovate. It just rehashes what it already knows, more or less. But since we're on the topic of AI, there was a question, as I mentioned, from Vulcan Janetchi. I hope I didn't massacre that too bad. Obviously, a Turkish name. How will AI technologies transform PLM processes? And what will be the most significant impacts of this integration on the future of PLM? Kind of a big one, but that was more or less what we ended up discussing in your workshop, Rob.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we ran a workshop as part of the technical tapas, and lucky enough to have yourself, Michael, and Oleg in those sessions too. And we looked at AI in digital engineering and PLM today versus what it would look like when it's mature. And just maybe I start with what it looks like today, where AI sits outside of PLM, and it's a separate application that people are using, to help them with some administrative tasks, whether it's data checking or looking for duplicates, etc. But when it reaches maturity, it will be fully embedded within the digital engineering environment. So you won't be able to tell what is actually a PLM system and what is AI architecture. You will have it thinking and operating like individuals within that space. And I know, for example, Oleg, I'll probably pull you in here. You have some kind of thoughts about how AI will be operating, especially with federated architectures.
Well, I don't think we really know. And I think the question that
Oleg, sorry to stop you. The audio, we can't hear you very well.
can you hear me? It's something with the microphone.
It's very low. It sounds quite low compared to everybody else.
Pump up the volume.
It's on the top. It is on the top. Let me try it a little bit more.
But the anyway, just while Oleg's fixing the audio, we still we said that humans still need to be in the loop and be the ultimate decision makers. Although AI will have the power to absorb vast amounts of data and present conclusions, it's still going to be down to humans to make decisions about the course of action, etc. Michael, was there, what else did you take away from the session? What was your because you deep dived into engineering change management, for example?
Yeah, that was an idea of one of the actually two of the people in the session, and we got to thinking one of the issues with the major issue we have with ChatGPT and all these things is it's not deterministic, right? You ask it the question twice, and sometimes you get two completely orthogonal answers, and the hallucination is a huge problem. The other problem is it just wants to make you happy. Was that answer great? Can I give you another happy answer? And so I don't think it was me that had this insight. I'm not that smart, but one of the people in the group said, well, what we need is a doubting version, like the Murderbot version that's got anxiety and it's like, I'm not sure that's going to work. Are you sure? Can we check that? So you might want a dialogue. You might want another AI that's trained to like not believe anything, like a scouting Thomas versus the really nice, okay, everything's fine, and can I give you a coffee now? Kind of version.
This makes me think on we had in the past the inconvenient truth. Now we will have the convenient truth in the future.
Yeah. And we don't. So I thought that was. It's sort of like if we need a devil's advocate version of ChatGPT,
Yeah.
Because and another thing I mentioned was that as we delegate more and more things to AI, we're taking a big risk, because when something goes wrong, what guardrails are in place that we can actually reproduce the series of decisions that were made that led to a disaster? There's no standard for that. You back up all 3 trillion parameters and the 7,000 prompts you did to get to that. That's also problematic in my opinion. How's your audio now, Oleg? Maybe we can get your feedback.
For some reason, this application is not allowing me to switch the microphone. So I was trying to switch to another microphone.
But maybe just move closer to the one you're using. Oh no, we just lost you completely.
Yeah.
Switch back. That wasn't.
It looks like.
Can you hear me now better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, let's try. Maybe I just need to speak up.
Shout.
I will try. For some reason, the application is not allowing me to switch microphone. So I was trying to switch to another one. Anyway, I was trying to go back to the question that Rob mentioned about AI. I think this is something that we are trying to figure out, is how actually AI will help. Just give you an example completely from non-PLM space. If I will ask you how many times you go to ChatGPT or similar tool instead of going to Google or search. If you think about this, that would be the indication of the change of how we accessing information and how we getting answers. So, for example, I know in many articles, Jos is saying we need to switch from documents to data. So if we go to Google and search for something, we're getting results. Think about them as documents. So I mean, page is in fact is document. So we're getting to page, and then we need to figure out in this page what we want. So you probably noticed, I'm pretty sure, because I did as well, is that Google sometimes starting to give you answers, even if it happened like 3 years and 5 years ago, you're starting to get some answers. So, I mean, that was the early signs of AI-ish, if you would like to put it this way. Now, if I go to ChatGPT, I can get an answer to my question, and ChatGPT is pulling information from different sources, especially now, when it get access to internet and many other tools. Now, if you think about AI infrastructure and AI agents, and there are different tools that can be used by agents, we're just raising up from the level where we're requesting the list of documents to the place where we are getting requests about some data and answers. And this layer is actually performs all these requests, performs all this logic, and presents information us in the way we want. So that was my kind of main message in my presentation. I said we're getting from get access to data to getting answers. And I think this is another layer that will be filled by AI, different AI tools that will give us the answers rather than returning list of documents or list of some other data objects, as we say it in PLM tools.
Exactly, and this is how we will change our behavior. Huh? It is really a transformation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So there's a couple more questions coming in that are very relevant to this, and I'd like Maria, as you've been quiet for a while. There's one here that has a bit of a human angle on it. Maybe AI could be used to better understand customer requirements and assist in the setup of PLM systems, and decision points are left to the human mind. I think that's even one of the core things that you guys do with Share PLM, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, AI is obviously great when you're, especially when you're in a discovery phase with a customer and you're trying to figure out, first of all, what is their system landscape? How has adoption gone in the past? What has been successful? What hasn't been successful? What's worked well? What's not? I think AI can be great in some respects to help you, better understand the industry in which the customer is in, help better benchmark what systems are other companies using within the same industry, what sort of processes are they following, things like this. However, I still believe that, AI can only go so far. So it's definitely, when it comes to kind of more of the human side and bringing people on board with an organizational change, like the implementation of a new PLM system, ultimately, AI tools like ChatGPT can give you some kind of very high level overviews, whether that's of ideal processes, whether that's of ideal kind of onboarding strategies. However, ultimately, one thing that we feel very kind of strongly about at Share PLM is that to really get people on board, they have to really feel like they are a part of it. And to make them feel like they are a part of it, you have to really take the time, go down onto the shop floor, speak to the end users, and understand what are their specific pain points and what are their specific kind of wants and needs out of a system. And I think that's something that AI can only go so far, because they're not the ones going down and speaking to the users and finding out kind of what would make them want to use the system and use it in the way that the business wants them to. So I think AI can definitely support us when it comes to helping organizations with their transformation projects, but I think also we can't lose the human aspect. I mean, that was the whole point of the Share PLM Summit. That's why we wanted to get everyone together, even with the kind of growth in AI and its capabilities. It's still important that we actually take the time to connect face to face and on kind of a human to human level, as opposed to human versus machine.
Exactly.
What do you think about that, Jos?
Yeah. Does AI understand culture? That, that's where we need humans.
Imagine this. at some point you'll be having a conversation with a chatbot where it'd be hard to differentiate between whether that's a human or a machine. And so, one of the challenges I was talking about earlier on with customers, how do you, let's say you've got to speak to 50 different people within the company and find out, what their requirements are, what problems they're having with their current system landscape, and what they would like in the future. That could potentially be quite time consuming for the team doing the work to get that information. But imagine you could deploy a chatbot which would have chat interactions with those people at a time that's convenient for them, and that would ask them the right questions and would modify the questions based on the answers that they're getting, and even propose kind of A or B scenarios. You could the quality of the information you could gather would be exceptional, and that is using machine rather than what would take days of people's times in the past.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
traditional consultant is gone, huh?
Well, I think AI is there to create that questionnaire that Maria wants to use to go on the machine floor, but a human needs to ask those questions.
Yeah.
But then you record them with Otter.ai if the person's okay with it, and then you get a resume from the AI.
Exactly, yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
I think maybe, if you said to AI, imagine you're a consultant and this is the end goal you want to achieve, and you're going to ask 5 questions, put 5 questions to these people that you're going to be speaking to, whether it's engineering, manufacturing, whoever. I think you'd get pretty good results in terms of the kinds of questions that you would ask that a consultant would develop. Obviously, when it comes to interpreting that information that you get, I think then it is the human value. But I think AI can do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, maybe an anecdote on this. I was last year involved in a software selection for a company, a type of startup with 4 potential vendors. And upfront, I asked ChatGPT, what would you advise for this company with these characteristics? And actually, the end recommendation from ChatGPT was at the end what the people chose also, without having shown them the results before. We never influenced them on this.
Yeah, and I think another great use of tools like ChatGPT is creating kind of user personas as well. So when we're working on projects, one of the kind of first activities we do is, first of all, making sure that all key stakeholders and impacted users understand what is kind of the vision behind this, the implementation of a PLM system. What is the business case for this? But more importantly, to break it down onto a user level, tools like ChatGPT can be great to ask questions like, I'm engineering, whatever her engineering, as Rob called her in his workshop. And this is how I've previously been working, and we're now implementing X PLM system. What are some of the pain points that I might be feeling? What are some of the emotions that I might be feeling? And actually, this is a great way of kind of contextualizing before you actually speak to a lot of users, to actually kind of better put yourself in their position and kind of already kind of build out those user personas before you get the information from the actual person to better build those out as well. So I definitely agree that it can really help, and it can really kind of make a lot of our typical consulting work a lot more efficient. But I still believe that, we have to find a happy medium between both the connecting on the human level and then using these tools to actually make our job even more efficient.
Vinod Kadam asked about, hello everyone, there's so much happening in AI in general, but where can we connect and contribute to use cases related to PLM across domains, different projects, like implementation, customization, migration, integration? It sounded like for Maria, that was like you were talking about, we're interviewing users and we're seeing what they're doing. So now we pass the next phase where we're actually going to start implementing. How do where are the use cases where we use the AI in the most efficient way to keep the humans in the puzzle, but get rid of the really boring, tedious. I mean, that's what we want to use it for, right? Is getting rid of that stuff.
Definitely. I mean, AI has been great. So when we've moved, kind of from the initial phase, we're moving into more of the implementation phase, and we're starting to onboard users and train them. AI is great for content development as well. Of course, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. And of course, you need somebody with the technical knowledge to actually go through and make sure that the training materials are accurate. But actually, as a way of making training content development more efficient, creating something that we used to do in the past was if I wanted to create a tutorial on how to perform a specific action within a PLM system, I would record the video in the system, and then I would have to record the voiceover myself, which would take so many tries to make sure that you don't mess up the script, etc. But now there are so many AI tools that you just input the script and it will give you the voiceover. Creating avatars has also been something that we've done as well when it's come to training programs. And similarly with things like chatbots, as Rob was saying, so once users kind of have already been onboarded into the system and had their training, having a chatbot that they can ask kind of day-to-day questions to regarding the system, regarding certain processes, and get the results immediately via a chatbot is also something that we're seeing a lot more of now as well as things like digital adoption platforms that kind of lead you through the system as you're working on it. So yeah, we're really seeing AI's kind of dominance throughout the various phases of PLM projects.
And then a company that wants to implement AI capabilities. I think that's where you see now a lot of discussion and thinking. Maybe Oleg, you are close to that also.
Yeah, it's very interesting to listen to how many diverse directions and applications we are taking it. So I can bring kind of the perspective from a specific side, as with what we do with OpenBOM. And I also can bring the perspective of writing maybe separately. But speaking about tools like OpenBOM and what we do with AI, what is really interesting to see is how tasks that were very hard to automate before today is becoming much easier to implement and automate them, because many tasks that we perform in the customers are getting data, they're retrieving information, they transforming it, they moving it to different places. It's all can be described as a particular. I know everyone is using the word agent now, but those are activities, and those activities can be really automated in the way that which look like more like human. And in the past, we defined workflows, and we said those workflows are moving, messages in inbox from one person to another person. And today it's getting some sort of mix, where some of these activities are operating with people, and we can be much more human, just asking what we want. This is what this agentic workflows are allowing us to do. But on the other side, having much more powerful transformation on information. So the information is getting very, very easy transformable and used from different tools. So I think this is where we will see a lot of breakthrough in the future, and we see those implementations are happening really well, and a lot of experiments are happening that will just simplify work for people.
There was two kind of complementary comments. Benedict Smith, who all of us have probably chatted with at some point or another, he said that what Rob you described already exists inside Accenture. They call it Lucy. I asked for a link. Maybe he'll put it in the chat for us. And then my friend James White, he said that he agrees with you, of course, and he says he would use Discovery to survey hundreds to thousands of engineers to learn the as-is of a PLM system and a harmonization project, because he's been part of PLM projects at Accenture, and they could never trust that they got the entire as is, right? You only got the very small portion of the 2 or 3 people you interviewed over the many other people that were involved. So I don't know if you guys want to react to that.
Well, when I hear the as is explore, I always say we need to work on the to be. And, because sometimes you lose too much time on studying the as is, and you really need to first put your mark on the horizon and say, there I want to go to. And then probably everyone has his own point of as is and a perception on how to get there. And that, at least that's where I focus on.
And this is, I think, this is where we get into the territory of, how creative can AI be, so that you could use it to document the as is, but when you start to think ahead to the where you want to go, how useful is AI there? And I think I'd argue that you actually need more human creativity and vision, and that's where our value is.
Yeah.
If I can jump on this, Michael, so I want to bring some examples that you might know from kind of human behavior. Do you have some stuff in your house that you don't need, and you put in the box, and then if you don't open it for 12 months, you probably don't need it, right? So that's kind of many companies behave. They have a lot of data that they don't know that it exists because they don't know how to even access this information. So I think what we are going to see in these advanced data management capabilities today, and I'm switching back to tools, is that if we will have an easier way to crunch all information using much more flexible data models and bring it in a place where we can actually get some answers and results, we might discover this information, so we can move to be like Jos, you suggested, because the agents and large language models and the new data modeling tools that we have, they already will absorb this information, but we don't even know how to search for this information. Like we know, if you know the right keyword, you can find something in Google. If you don't know the right keyword, you'll never find it. So it's a kind of discovery. I'm hearing from people today that saying, "Oh, I was talking to ChatGPT this morning, and this is what I want to discuss." So I mean, I want I want the same to start happening with the tool, like you're suggesting. I talked to the new AI tool from PLM vendor, and now I know what I want to be, right? So.
And then there was another two questions that are sort of similar. There was James said, if AI solves the PLM murder mystery, how do engineers know if the guilty party, if it found the guilty party or not? Sure, trust but verify, but how can we know the truth without doing all the research ourselves? And that's similar to what Dan Theoden says. And I got to go shout out Dan, probably the first guy to write an MCP with Eris underneath and put it on GitHub. Bravo, Dan. He just demoed that to me about 10 days ago. Pretty nice. Dan says data quality, and this is, I think it's a similar comment to the one I just read.
Sound issues.
Huh?
Yeah, so in that context, maybe I'm seeing that in the past we had a single source of truth. Yeah, we hear you, at least broken once in a while. Now you're gone. And he took Maria with him also.
Now someone need to fill the gap.
Yeah, okay. So let me continue. So I think in the past with old PLM, we would talk about the single source of truth because we had this system thinking. And now we are in the age of federated PLM. Now we talk about the single source of change and the nearest source of truth. And I think with AI, we are probably in the most likely truth because we don't own the truth anymore. We can't even control it. And I think those are for me the three taglines to tag every generation of PLM development. Michael, welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened
I was
there.
also thrown out.
Yeah, I noticed him pulling.
So Dan said data quality is often the main focus when training LLMs, but with PLM, AI could also interpret ambiguous or incorrect data and still arrive at the right conclusion, perhaps even better than a human could. This introduces both risk and opportunities. How do you recommend we manage the uncontrolled interpretations? Or will humans always remain Q&A for the AI suggestions, hence they will never actually be fully autonomous? So
I can actually give the answer to this. I think it's available in all best practices, as much as we can call it best practices of AI agent development. There is a stage in every AI agent that it's called guards. So you develop some guards in this agent that will not return wrong data. So I think some guards development needs to be done in all this AI tool development. So that's we probably will need to learn more about how to do it, but that might be the way to do it.
Guardrails is what you mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was. I mentioned this during the workshop, but I went to a really cool conference with Capgemini, and there was a woman there from Oxford University that was talking about. She was a robotics specialist, and she said she was pushing for an ISO standard for an electronic black box for robots, so that when a robot that's interacting with humans does something really stupid, and someone gets hurt, which will happen someday, we can go back and figure out like a black box on an airplane, right? And I'm thinking maybe we need the same standard in manufacturing in general, in PLM and manufacturing, because we're going to, again, introduce this stuff. And when something goes wrong, what's the root cause analysis procedure? It's going to be tough, right? Even just when you're trying to, I'm already using like 4 or 5 chats at the same time between Claude and Mistral, and I even get confused, like which one was I asking which question, because I'm waiting for the other one to answer, and the deep research is taking 15 minutes. I've already asked 17 questions on 3 other ones, and
I mean, this assumes that humans make good decisions or that we're good judges. I think we've got so much bias, and we attribute so much good fortune to stuff that we've had no influence over at all. It's just dumb luck, to assume that we could somehow make better decisions is maybe misguided. But still, I mean, ultimately, as the human race, we should have some control over our destiny. So I agree that we need guardrails and black boxes and all the other safeguards. But at some point, maybe as a society, we will evolve and say, put faith and trust into in machine intelligence over our own. But we haven't overcome selfishness or any of these other human traits. So we're probably unlikely to.
But then there was that paperclip story that the guy in my group mentioned. And you tell an AI to make paperclips, and it basically kills all the humans because it's easier to make paperclips, right? So you get the T2. It's always a T2 nightmare that you get worried about. Christian Nottinger asked a really cool question. I like this one. I'll throw this first to Maria because she's been quiet for a while, but I like this one. Has AI as a render tool been discussed? Something that'll render the current state of the bomb on all engineering attributes, weights, tolerances, joints, and connections? We know that engineers have shortcuts to get that, but can an AI be trained to present reality?
I feel like that's a question I need to throw to either Oleg or Rob. I think their experience will probably answer that question in a much better and succinct way than I could. So I'll pass to Rob, and then maybe you can pass to Oleg.
I imagine this is probably in Oleg's backlog, and it's probably only a couple of weeks if it isn't already part of OpenBOM already.
Yeah, thank you for credit of OpenBOM is answering all questions. Not there yet, quite honest. But I found interesting how now all problems that we are aware about and all issues now somehow attributed to AI. I think it's a kind of presented as a magic. I think it's just what I see it as a better way to communicate with data. I mean, this is not magic. I think it's just a better way to get data and to interface with data. So now we need to build mechanisms around them that will tell us how to interpret this data and how to use this data. I will give you an example. Like I can write a prompt that will give me a cost of part out of ChatGPT, just a number. So I can put a detailed description of a screw, characteristics, and everything. I will get a number. So it will be based on prompt data. Can I trust it? That's a really good question, right? Because it relies on so many sources. in online, and the ChatGPT does the best work to go and index all the sources, got this information. Can we trust it and use it? To a certain degree, yes, because we go to Google, we find some information, and say, here is the data. So ChatGPT probably does it as good as we do, but can it be trusted for some decision making? This is where we need to have a better tools, and we need to have a better data extractions information and more validated records, because I want to have a tool that will, on the background of the communication with AI agent, will go to the all invoices that we purchase this component in the database of this company and get this result. So that would be correct result. So we don't want the random information about this. But again, the same agent can get communication aligned. So that's why I'm saying the scope is important. So it's just a way of data extraction, and we need to control it.
Well, maybe this one will work better for Maria. One of the projects this is from Vinod Kadam. One of the projects we started as part of Co was social PLM. Now it looks more sensible to make it work as all the elements can be integrated properly with intercommunication. So in other words, how do we use AI to create this social PLM, which is sort of one of the things you guys do at Share?
To bring people together. I mean, ultimately, that's the whole purpose of using PLM, and it's one of the main kind of selling points is that we have a single source of truth. We're all able to collaborate in real time and always have access to up-to-date data. I've learned from you, Jos. But of course, you need to, in order to be able to make the most of those kind of functionalities of a PLM system, you need to really convince people of the importance to collaborate and to better communicate. So that's one thing that we focus on a lot in many of our projects. So actually helping organizations with their communication strategies, how to actually bring people together, not just within the PLM system itself, but actually outside of it. So looking at things like creating user groups, also creating kind of communities of practice. How do users best want to receive information? What channels? And so I think it is definitely important that we give, once the system has been implemented, we still go back to users and we still give them the opportunity to have a space where they can come, provide feedback, lessons learned, and even just ask questions. Because, we don't always want to be asking ChatGPT for advice. Sometimes we do want to come together and ask a question in person. So yeah, Jos, you can add to that.
Yeah, because let's agree, AI is not social. I mean,
here you go.
You can't take AI down to the pub and have a pint.
It's really hard to have a glass of sherry with your AI, whereas I can go to the Share PLM Summit and have a glass of sherry with everybody.
I just want to remind everyone, if you forgot, but I just found, I wrote an article 15 years ago. There was quite a lot of debates. Can we design products on Facebook? So that was back in time when everyone was excited by Facebook and said, oh, we can bring the same environment to design products. I mean, this is how everyone back 15 years translated social system. Now all systems now have this chat and the capability to create threads of the discussions between the users. I think most of tools today have it. Did it create more social systems? I don't know. Just wanted to remind that we've been there already with another technological loops.
With all of these AI discussions, we talk about the upsides, which there are risks as well as upsides, but there's a cost as well, not just the energy cost, but for example, there's a cost to implementing PLM. It's not that PLM is a magic wand and you just apply it and everything's great. It's the same with AI. You need technology, you need servers, you need people, who are going to do the coding. You need strategy. So there's a whole lot of work that goes into this, and so I think that this should also be part of discussions around AI. Otherwise, it's all just nice to have and kind of sweet dreams.
Someone asked, but I think that we need a whole webcast for that, about what are the classic PLM vendors doing in AI integration today. I mean, I can say that AI has been in generative design for a while, right? 3D printing is primarily ML based, and there's a lot of AI that goes into sub D modeling and implicit modeling. But in terms of PLM, other than the chatbots that were announced by Propel and Dassault's somewhat vague 3D plus universes, I know vendors are working on it, but I'm not sure we're really at the same level as some of the other industries are, particularly CRM and industries that are far more social by nature.
I mean, I've seen messages like AI is an adaptable interface, that the menu changes based on your work. And I think this is not really AI, it's
no
physics.
Yeah. So I think the jury's still out on all the things we're going to be able to do. That being said, a more technical question someone raised, Mohammed Asghar asked, will ALM be integrated with PLM and act as a single component?
ALM and PLM?
Yeah.
For me, in the long term, they are the same. Because,
but is it just a document, or does it become...
ALM is the asset lifecycle management in my definition of ALM, or is it?
That's the question.
About the software, because with connected products, we come close to products in operations, assets in operation, and so there the concept merge. If we talk about ALM and PLM, again, we should take care that we are not talking about systems. We are talking about an infrastructure, and in a PLM infrastructure, there should be software and there should be hardware, because it should be data-driven, model-based. So maybe the question can be refined, Michael?
Yeah, perhaps.
We also feel like we now need a Share PLM Summit purely on AI and how humans are going to be interacting with it after this session.
As long as in the bodega.
James points out that at least one vendor does actually have an AI bomb ranking capability with sourcing, cost, weight, compatibility, 85% rankings, alternative, and raise it to 95 results. So some of that stuff's out there, but it hasn't penetrated a lot deeper than some of that superficial stuff.
Exactly.
And we've got we got 9 minutes, so I can ask this other one from Dirk Alexander Molitor, who's at Accenture Industry X. He asks, are you aware of any knowledge graph based, that sounds like an Oleg question. Are you aware of any knowledge graph based network of engineering artifacts along the product development lifecycle? For example, connections between requirements, architectures, CAD files, simulation results, and test cases for chain impact analysis. That's an Oleg question, right?
You mean OpenBOM has knowledge graph, but I don't know what was the question really. If there is a knowledge graph,
are you just connecting the BOM, or are you also connecting simulation results, test results, architecture requirements in order to do chain impact analysis? That was really the question.
I convert this to an MBSE infrastructure, which not necessarily is a tool.
Yes, it depends what line we like to use. So there is a knowledge graph. We call it product knowledge graph, sometimes manufacturing graph, but this is the technology and knowledge graph technology that runs underneath of OpenBOM. But if this is a question about technology, or this is a question about implementation and particular data, that's actually where it's made.
It sounded like a technology question, and I think that's very much digital twin technology, isn't it? Because that's effectively your digital product twin.
Agreed. Well, it's been a great exchange. I don't know if anybody wants to give a last word before we say goodbye. You want to start, Maria?
Sure. Well, I think we moved slightly away from kind of the recapping of the Share PLM Summit, but this was a really interesting conversation. But I guess to bring it back, I'd like to ask you all a question, or maybe even just less a question, more of a comment. But what would you say was kind of your biggest takeaway from the Share PLM Summit, and maybe what are you looking forward to seeing more of, or more of next year? Maybe we could start with Jos.
Okay. Well, my takeaway was I've never seen a conference in the last 10 years with so much energy spin-off, where people were so happy that at least they were talking with humans. I think also in a very human-oriented atmosphere. So I think that brought a lot of energy instead of the lists of sessions to attend. I think, and like Oleg said, also the other conference before COVID.
Oleg?
Yeah, I think just to echo what Jos said. There was a lot of energy in conversations, and I think that's the switch that we need. So it's less about it's less about technology and more about how we can use this technology with people and how it can help to solve problems. This is where I see it as the biggest thing, because it was very much technology oriented for many vendors, and vendors typically say, okay, my technology is better. I mean, that's obvious, but I think the real conversation about real problems, this is what was really interesting in this conversation, in this event.
How about you, Rob?
Well, for me, is unity, and the fact that PLM is a team sport, and that everyone that was there was focused on the same goal. And so, yeah, as Jos said, everyone came away really energized, but in a way that you felt part of something bigger. And actually, there's been a lot of collaboration that's come out of the conference. And to answer Maria's question about next year, I'm so excited to see how this evolves, because it really is unique. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who hopefully have sensed what it's like to be there. And I'm really excited to kind of see how this evolves and meet the other people that are going to be part of it, and see all the new presentations, etc., and the new social interaction. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well that you'll make. I think the feeling of community, I think what was so great about this conference is that it wasn't discriminatory in any way. You know, it was completely system agnostic. We had people coming from using a variety of different PLM systems. I think we pretty much had all of them represented by at least somebody. But it was great to see that, everyone was able to connect over similar problems they had when it came to kind of human resistance to the tools. So I also loved that level of kind of unity that, people, the way in which people approach change and people's kind of natural born resistance to it is the same, no matter kind of which tool it is that they're being presented with. So, yeah.
And we forgot the diversity, Maria.
Yeah, I was going to jump in
the
for my own
diversity.
feedback. I wanted to say that I thought the parity of having almost an equivalent number of men and women was fantastic, because we got a whole nother perspective than we usually get at the traditional PLM 90-10 conference. Annalie Hagen says, "Where are all the women in the chat here? It's amazing to see so many powerful PLM." It's true. It was absolutely astounding to see so many brilliant and women and men, but also how everybody was just together to, in this community spirit. And I think next year I'd like to see that again. And I'd like it just to be expanded. And, I thought the workshops could have easily been a whole day. Like with Rob and I, we felt really constrained by the time, and we were sort of, oh my God, everybody's leaving because, the flight out. And so we were almost like, you could easily do 2 days of sessions and social networking, and then 1 day of workshops where you get a whole day to work on one of the 3 problems that you guys set up. So I thought
that's been very common feedback. And now I'm wondering, how is everybody going to convince their manager or their employer that they should take 3 days off work? So
well, maybe you have to do it on a Saturday. Maybe we have to do it on a Saturday. So
no, we're just going to have to make sure we have a really compelling agenda, just as strong as this year, and hopefully that will. Go ahead,
Maria,
Rob.
a bit of a sales pitch for you guys here, but I think it's value add. So it's like an accelerator. So anyone that attends a conference, the more days they spend interacting with other people, the more powerful they're going to become in terms of their impact on their own business. So it's actually there's a huge return on investment of going to the conference.
I think
in that case, we'll make it a week next year.
We haven't formally set a date. I think the next meeting of some subset of this group will be talking to a couple of analysts that I know, because I think it would be interesting to understand how they view the world and what that job is, because it's sort of mysterious. And I think we could probably learn some things there. And I would really appreciate in the comments feedback from what you guys like about these webinars, what other subjects you'd like to do. If I think maybe we could dive again into the AI digital thread as a service thing, because Rob missed out on that first one. So anyway, give us your comments. Thank you very, very much. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks or in September, because of vacation.
Yeah, no, thanks for everyone who
Thank
joined,
you.
and thanks for the
Thank you,
comments
everyone.
and questions.
Bye.
Appreciate it, everybody. Ciao, ciao.